It'll be like Garfield minus Garfield. All right.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. Intro now.
Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Autopod Decepticast. This is your weekly podcast that delivers a minute-by-minute breakdown of the 1986 Transformers movie. This is your episode 58, which means we're covering from the 57:01 to the 58-minute mark of the movie. And I'm your host, Aaron, and with me are two members of the infamous Brooklyn Street Gang. This is a real thing, the Decepticons.
Hey there, my name's fucking Rhinokus.
That is not what they sounded like at all.
No?
Well, but we gave no rhyme, no backstory.
That's true. I didn't.
I don't know
was
what you're
saving
talking
it for a second here.
And I'm not about to try to do
An accent?
An accent.
Okay, please don't.
I will not. I'm Caleb. I'm Caleb, and I'm part of the street gang in Brooklyn.
So, a little context, just since I really kind of
Am I going to get killed?
Totally blindly here. There was a real street gang. I learned this. Another shout out to Ben Bunch, our friend from Brooklyn. A street gang, a legitimate street gang in the 80s. Called the Decepticons, and not just in name, like in character. Like their street names were Megatron, Soundwave,
That is
like Rumble, Frenzy, Starscream. Like they went by these real monikers,
Frenzy.
and they were mostly high school kids, but they were kind of like a Robin mob type of gang. Basically, they were bullies and they would kind of beat kids up and steal their lunch money. But I think they would also do some probably petty and maybe some not so petty crimes throughout the Brooklyn streets.
Yeah,
Caleb, how do you know about this?
Well, Ben Bunch turned us on to it because there was a rapper called Sean Price that used to be a member of the Decepticons, and he was known as Decepticon Sean. And so we kind of looked into the gang a little bit more and found out that
there were articles written about them. They were terrorizing the streets.
And they would go into Manhattan or wherever, and they would pull thievery, and then they would go back to Brooklyn. Which they called Cybertron. Brooklyn was Cybertron. There was like different guys who had like the name Minosaur, and there was Megatrons. And there's some some YouTube videos out there that you can follow up on. There's a great Times article about it.
That is insane. Because whenever you say Brooklyn Gang, I automatically go to like the 20s newsies, like flipping a coin next to a wall.
But yeah, that's your style.
I don't tell you nothing, copper.
One thing funny in that article is that it mentions that there was other gangs that kind of were like that didn't work out. They weren't as big or they failed. And there was
the GoBots.
No, there was a gang called the Tonka Trucks.
That's real. This is real. So yeah, I'll just say Sean P was a pretty big name that came out of it. Members of Onyx, Slam, Back to Fuck Up were associated with the Decepticons. Helta Skelta, Smith and Wesson. So yeah, it was like a real deal, a real kind of subculture of Brooklyn gang life. But weird. I'll digress from that and talk about the West Coast for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just about to say, I can think of somebody else that would have fit right in with the Decepticons.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Where are you going with this?
Well, I was going to help you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the transition that I messed up. So we are absolutely thrilled today to have Mike Seibert with us. He has a great podcast. I'm going to do a little intro here. A great podcast out of Seattle, Washington, Mike Seibert Radio, which you can find on Stitcher, iTunes, and SoundCloud, probably among other things. And, he basically talks about stuff things in general, whatever the hell he wants, but seems to kind of hone in on movies and indie music and a little bit of nerd stuff. And, I discovered Mike through pure vanity, as I knew that he was shouting us out on his show. So I started listening to kind of see what he was saying, but become a listener. And it's great. In particular, I love to hear him talk about movies and the insights that he brings to that. So he loves Transformers the movie, and that's why he's here. So I'll just go ahead and give you a welcome, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Woo! Well, see, I can help you with that. See, I come with my own sound effects. Well, Aaron, thank you so much. That is probably like the most gracious introduction I think I have ever had. Thanks, fam. That's it's getting me right in the feels, dude. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. This is great.
Hey, as we kick into this, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Mike Seibert Radio? And what I'd really like to hear is how you describe the format of your show.
Well, very good, because it's kind of all over the place. So we'll start with that. I, at the top of my show, I say it's a podcast radio show about stuff and things that are on my mind every week. And basically that ties into a bunch of the things that you said earlier. I do interviews, I do independent music, I do pop culture news. It's really just kind of whatever happens to be there. Like if there's a artist that wants to do an interview with me, that's that week's episode. If I don't have an interview booked for that particular week, I just talk about like the last couple movies I saw. Or other times I just go like on these huge deep dive rants with co-hosts. Like I have a co-host named Killing Spree that I have infamously done a couple shows with. We did Blade Runner 2049. We did Star Wars The Last Jedi. Coming up, we're going to talk about some monster movies. Like he's a huge old school Godzilla fan. So he's I think he and I are probably the only two people on this earth that actually kind of liked Pacific Rim Uprising. So we're going to talk about that, as well as Rampage. After that comes out, we'll kind of do like a double bill there. But yeah, no, so my show is kind of like all over the place, and I do some other stuff on the side as well that's also a little different. I do a little bit of community activism in my local community as well. But basically, that's what it is. My show is kind of a offshoot of my old college radio show, and that kind of gets into my story a little bit. I've been broadcasting for about 3 years now. I started at a college radio station called KGRG 89.9 FM. It's at Green River College in Auburn, Washington. And I've always been fascinated by radio and broadcasting, and I've always been a fan of the medium. But I was at this school for completely different purposes. I was taking IT classes. Like I had left a long-standing job that I was a part of, and then had some other stuff in my life happen to where it was time for a change. I needed to do something different with my life, and my wife suggested, she's like, go back to school, take some classes. It's interesting having that perspective and experience of going back to school as an adult. Because I never would have pegged myself for a college going type of person. I mean, I'm half a screwball, and didn't and really kind of the school experience wasn't something that I fondly remember. So going back was something that was a little intimidating, but I really took to it. There's something about having perspective, experience, and kind of work ethics as an adult, and applying that to a classroom environment. It's actually like really rewarding. But
I imagine that being in class in that way is also annoying in some ways, because you're in there with kids, right? And and those kids just aren't mature, and you kind of roll your eyes at them, and you think, well, I
like this is your perspective of what
well, that's how I would be if it were me in that situation. Well, like I would be annoyed by the kids, and then at the same time, you get more, for you, the adult, it's a more rewarding experience.
Yeah,
and you get more out of it.
You're 100% right on that, Aaron. In that, I'm in classes with folks that are twice my age and half my age, and we're all in the same class together. Because it's community college. It's just classes are in the morning, afternoon, at night, all over the place. So I promise this is going somewhere, but in my last quarter of my last class, I come out of my classroom one day and I see on the bulletin board, "Be on the radio." And it's got a picture of, some students doing DJ stuff. Somebody's got headphones on. There's somebody talking into a microphone. And I'm like, wait a second. Our school has a radio station? And it had been there for over 25 years. KGRG is kind of like...
That poster?
Well, no, the radio station. The poster had probably been there a week.
Be somebody.
Pretty much. But yeah, so it just kind of took that spark of inspiration. I went home, talked to my wife about it, and she's like, you know what? While you're out looking for a job, because you need to look for a job now that you're done with school, but it's, she's like, just take a class. So I did. I signed up for the radio class, and I got bit by the bug. And, something I've said as I've returned since to the class and the program, I always tell the new students, through that class, you can find a passion you didn't know you had. And that's what happened with me. It's like, I tell people, it's like, whatever my degree is for, I'm not using it. I'm a broadcaster now, and there's no going back. But then what happens?
So does that mean you have 2 degrees?
I do, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
I have an IT degree and I have a broadcasting degree, both from Green River. So that's what happened. The job search turned into, I have to go on this remote. I have to go to this show. I have to go to this concert. We have interviews set up, and the whole radio lifestyle just kind of drew me in. And now what it's done, and in fact, it's kind of funny because my whole persona, for lack of a better term, gets really confusing and really murky because I started at a college radio station, and then I did what you're supposed to do in this program. I got myself an education, but then I got myself a jobby job. I have a behind the scenes position at a commercial radio station here in Seattle. And so basically, I'm not a radio personality on the air. I don't have my own show. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but I work in professional radio. But then what I found is that I still had the itch, as soon as my time at KGRG came to an end, because it was that choice of I can do radio for fun for free, or I can do radio professionally and get paid for it. But I was getting itchy not talking into a microphone. And one of the things that I did with my college radio show on KGRG was I would record my episodes and load them up as podcasts. And so, if you go to my SoundCloud page, you can go back and listen to all of my old stuff from 2-3 years ago, and it's a lot different than kind of what I do now with Mike Seibert Radio. But my point being is I had paid out my SoundCloud account through the end of the year, and I was like, well, I still have this feed. I kind of want to keep podcasting and doing other stuff. And so basically, when I get off work, I reconfigure my board and I record my podcast. And one of the things I learned is that I'm not the only person in my building that has a podcast. In fact, I guess everybody has a podcast. But the thing that's different, I've made things so murky, is there's no connectivity to what they do at work. Either through what they do in their shows or even my boss, for example, has a stage name. he doesn't use his actual name during the couple podcasts that he's a part of. And I was never that smart. I never really came up with like a stage name. The closest thing I came up with,
Johnny Blaze.
Yeah, exactly. See, it was just like, one of the things that people do, they'll use like their first and middle name as kind of like their DJ name. And I don't especially like the sound of the combination of my first and middle name, so I don't want to use that. But no, the closest I came was like I was on a post-rock show with a bunch of young emo college kids, and I started calling myself Uncle Mike. And that
that just sounds creepy.
It does sound terrifying.
It ended quickly. It was like I did that for a couple weeks. I'm like, this was a terrible idea because these kids be
I've
half
made a
my
horrible
age.
mistake.
It's exactly. It's
if we could go back and start the podcast over, I feel like Aaron would definitely do a pseudonym because he is constantly terrified that he is going to be, I don't know, bombed or fired or something terrible's going to happen because people can find out who he is.
All right, moving on from that. So let's build your Transformers credibility
totally.
up a little bit here. Why don't you, like, what is your relationship to Transformers?
Well, I grew up with it. I'm, like we've talked about a couple weeks ago when you guys joined me on my show. We're about the same age. We're all kind of the same age. So I was a Transformers fan from day one. Got all the toys. Was super into the cartoons. I was really into the Marvel comics. In fact, this may be apocryphal because I can't confirm it, but I would imagine that Marvel Transformers comics were probably some of the first comic books I bought. I think that was kind of my gateway into like Spider-Man and X-Men and things like that. It's amazing those licensed books, Marvel knew what they were doing. Like, they had like a Thundercats book and some other stuff. But really, I was hard and heavy into everything Transformers when I was a kid. And when the movie came around, that was huge for me. I have said in other places, and I'll say it here now for context, Transformers the movie is my favorite movie of all time. It just is. And for me, it's not so much that I consider it the best movie. I mean, sure, there's a million other movies that are objectively better. In fact, arguably, Transformers the movie isn't objectively especially good, but that doesn't really change my love for it because it's a lot of it is nostalgia based. I remember the entire summer leading up to the releases, seeing all of the commercials, and it's like, 2 years in the making, and a rock and roll adventure in widescreen format, and all the stingers at the end where it'd be like, does Prime die?
Which is like so weird. Like, what a weird. Yeah, is probably the answer. I mean, you've kind of given it away.
Well, especially because they show him getting riddled with countless laser blasts.
Does Prime die?
On the way to, as he's hitting the ground. So, and to reference your thing on quality, I would say, though, I mean, it may not be the best movie in the world, but it certainly is the Citizen Kane of Transformers movies.
Oh, God damn it.
Wow.
You're not wrong though. But yeah, so seeing it in the theater just hit me and blew my hair back. It was the first movie that I went to go see by myself. I remember this very vividly. My mom took me
How old would you have been?
I was 7. So I was 7.
That's pretty young.
Pretty young.
It was a different time.
Well, and especially for what we all know unfold after the house lights go down and that particular movie starts. But yeah, no, my mom dropped me off at the theater, and it's kind of funny how childhood memories go, because I remember it as being like an empowering type thing. Oh, I'm going to the movies by myself. Probably in truth, my mom just didn't want to deal with me for a couple hours. So
she went shopping, had a Cosmo maybe.
I would exactly, yeah, because like it was at at the Majestic Bay Theater in Ballard, Washington, which is kind of like a little kind of like kind of like a fishing town. Kind of, it's all hipster area now, kind of like this sub neighborhood of Seattle, but it's, everything is all like, nautical themed. So like, I remember I go into this theater and they had like, portholes on the theater door. Like
That's
you would
weird.
see, yeah, like on a like a fishing boat and stuff. I mean,
There's like fish netting on the wall. There's some like actual fish hanging from marlin.
you get like a delicious salmon at the concession stand. But no, I remember like my mom gave me enough money to where like I could get a soda. I got a Dr. Pepper. I got a box of Red Vines and my popcorn.
Wow, this is really vivid in your memory.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I mean, again, this is part of the reason why it'll always be kind of like my favorite thing, because I have just like, I don't remember a whole lot from that time, but that's just something that's really imprinted on me. And I remember going in, sitting down, being by myself. There was actually, I would say, it wasn't a packed house, because obviously we know the movie was, a huge financial disappointment. But I mean, I remember there being people there, and just, I mean, the house lights go down, and just that first scene with Unicron coming around the nebula, and just the music, with just that Vince Ticola theme, and I'm just like, yeah,
yeah, I love that. I really do. Like I said, I've never heard anything like that with the coughs and the chuffing. It's weird.
And it was just like, I'm just like, what is this? And
does Prime die?
Yeah, and you don't even realize that it's like, a good 7 minutes before you even see anybody recognizable. But, like the theme hits and all of that stuff. I remember being, because like, I mean, you hear the stories of people that were, like the kid that supposedly locked himself in a closet for 2 weeks because Prime died. I remember at the time that Prime's death didn't upset me because of the way that it was presented. I think I may or may not have seen Wrath of Khan at that point. So I think I had at least kind of like a tertiary understanding of not just, maybe not death, but because I had probably seen Star Trek 3 at that point also. But
sure,
but at least
they always come back.
Yeah, but at least I understood the concept of heroic death. And so I knew what it was. But what I remember, though, is the shuttle scene. That's what terrified the hell out of me. And the thing I will not forget as long as I live is the first time you see Prowl's chest explode, his eyes turn glowing orange, and that smoke billows out of his mouth. I mean, I mean, every time I have conversations with people about Transformers the movie, they're like, oh, Optimus Prime. I'm like, no, dude, it was freaking Prowl's death that I think of all of the deaths in the movie is actually the most gruesome. Just because you see again, like, his eyes change color, and again that acrid smoke is just it's
visceral. I mean, on a Transformers level, it's completely
yeah. I mean,
visceral.
Caleb said this early on. If you imagine those were like humans, like it's horrifying.
Yeah, totally. So, and I remember later on, I was one of the other commercials and this one is really, really hard to find, but there's a version of the TV spot that says you have to see it twice to take it all in. And that was my thing.
That's convenient.
And so I remember, I mean, they knew what they were doing with the marketing of this movie. It's like, I need to buy the new toys. I'm on board with these new characters. And I told my mom, I'm like, well, I need to see it twice to take it all in. And sure enough.
I mean, what can I do? They told
the perfect child.
You just, very trusting with marketing. It just like, I remember it being a revelation to me. And I think this was in Gifted, Aaron and Caleb, when Mrs. G told us about, it was a unit on marketing or something, and she said that whenever you read like a shampoo bottle, it says rinse and repeat, and she was like, yeah, because you sell twice as much shampoo. I'm like, what? They could just lie?
They could just say whatever. we talk about this every now and again. Why do you think, whether it's the fandom or for yourself personally, that this thing holds up 3 decades? Obviously, there's the nostalgia, but there's got to be something more.
Well, there's a lot more to it. It's it's the first movie to introduce celebrity voice casting, or at least right up front and center. Like even at that age, I knew who Leonard Nimoy was, and I'm like, whoa, Leonard Nimoy. And so what it is, it's the convergence of firsts and significance that this movie does. It's like, it's for a lot of people, this is kind of like their gateway into anime, with the more sophisticated animation style. This movie is a lot of people's gateway into prog rock or synthesizer music, or maybe even a metal to an extent, because this movie has all of that going on. It's like, it's not just one thing that this movie is. It's all of the things, between the voice casting, the sophisticated and detailed animation, the mature storytelling, it
really doesn't get that credit. I mean, everything you just said, when you think about it, this is a very progressive movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It really is.
Not to cut you off, Mike,
no, you're
but
fine.
I my girlfriend and I watched the Care Bears movie last night.
Yeah.
Because that's a Saturday evening that I can get behind. But I was watching, I'm like, oh my God, this is garbage. Like, the animation is god awful.
Yeah.
The voice acting is terrible. At one point, the kid starts singing, and I'm like, I don't know. Is he the producer's kid? Because it's super flat. And it's just, the story is ridiculous. There's no characterization. Nothing seems to happen for any particular reason.
Right.
And it's like, I did think while I was watching that, wow, this is aimed at the same kind of audience, but it's way, way less sophisticated than that.
Credit to Wally Burr for the voice. I mean, the voice acting was one thing. Transformers was like a strength of
Absolutely,
theirs,
that's the thing. No matter what
much
you
of a hard
about
ass
it,
as he was,
the voice acting is always on point.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's all of those things, and for me, it will always be the meter stick, the measurement, the benchmark of any television to movie adaptation. And I mean, I'm even comparing that to Star Trek movies. I'm I remember going to see Star Trek Generations in 1994. I'm like, well, it's no Transformers the movie, because because
that was on the that's on the poster.
There's your
it's
pull
no
quote.
Transformers the movie, Mike Seibert.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, any type of property, whether it be, even Pokemon or, anything modern where you add the movie to it, and it just, all it's ever been is an expanded episode, whereas Transformers the movie is its own thing. It takes what you love,
different.
give you more of it, and just turn it so far on its head that you're like, I don't even know what the fuck this is, but I kind of like it.
But it worked.
Right.
Yeah, but it worked.
Right.
Well, did it though? Because it was savaged by the critics and was a financial failure. I mean, it's it cost I want to say $6 million to produce and made $1 million during its entire theatrical run.
I mean,
which,
from a monetary standpoint, I understand.
The number one standpoint by which things are judged is not a winner.
I guess selfishly, it
Sure.
worked for me.
As a piece of art. Or commercial art, anyway.
Or you could boil it down to just entertainment.
Yeah.
Sure,
But by every objective measure, a complete failure.
Yeah, I mean.
So while we're talking about Transformers, Mike,
Sure.
I'd love to to give us a quick rundown. What would be top Autobot, top Decepticon for you?
Oh gosh, top Decepticon for me would have to be Soundwave.
I knew it, a radio guy.
Exactly.
Durr.
And it's funny because in my old age or as my career has kind of developed, I've kind of warmed up on Blaster a bit.
I was going to say Blaster's your top Autobot.
I wasn't into Blaster growing up. I kind of like him okay, but Soundwave has always been not just my favorite Transformer, not just my favorite Decepticon, but kind of one of my favorite characters in general, because he's to me, him and Destro are kind of like that prototypical loyal lieutenant, and I always liked the number 2 guy just a little better, because I always thought it's Soundwave knows what's up. and even there's kind of a piece of it in the movie where Megatron says, "Don't leave me," and Soundwave's just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." It's just because he told him to.
Since Soundwave is your favorite Decepticon, how do you feel about his portrayal in this movie? Because we've said before, I think it's really awful. Like, I don't think the Soundwave of the show is portrayed in this movie. He's not really given anything to do.
Yeah, I can't disagree, but with a cast this big, I mean, everybody's getting the short shrift, and I feel like I get enough of the voice and the tapes, and to get to kind of see what makes Soundwave. I think I get enough of that, because keep in mind, the Soundwave of the cartoon isn't the Soundwave of the comics. Soundwave isn't necessarily especially ambitious, and I think when they're vying for leadership on Astro Train, obviously, the iconic line, Soundwave superior. That's more of a slam on the Constructicons as it is him kind of putting himself up there, saying, because he's not necessarily saying I want to be the leader. He's just saying,
not you.
Yeah, he's like, I'm better than you, because I mean, he's Soundwave, and he's got his own army that he carries with him at all times. And
in the comics, I recollect that he had a little bit more, I don't know if devious is the right word, but a little bit more of being able to play both sides the Decepticon leadership would jump back and forth between Megatron and Shockwave or Ratbat, or I can't pronounce his name, Jihaxus upon Cybertron. Like he would kind of play all sides of it pretty well. He was like more of a spy master than he is on the show.
I'm right there with Mike. Soundwave is my favorite.
Yeah.
Decepticon. And I have the original Soundwave. That was my first. That was like my first Transformer toy. Yeah, I have it right over there. Look at it. Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you, Mike.
And he's an awesome toy too. I mean, with those die-cast legs and all that stuff. I mean, he's super, super cool.
I thought when I first bought him, I thought that they could actually play tapes. I was kind of bummed.
You dummy.
I know.
Well, the Japanese version of the original Soundwave, I don't remember if it's like a micro change or a Diaclone or whatever Soundwave was, but he comes with like a microphone and headphones also.
Oh, wow, yeah. I think he is a micro change because he turns into an everyday sort of item. The micro change, like Megatron was a micro change. Soundwave, sorry, that's a little bit of a digression. Before we get into the main part of the show here, I just wanted to cover a couple other things with you. So you recently did an episode that I particularly enjoyed where you talked about Black Panther, which has quickly become one of my favorite Marvel movies. But
just past Titanic.
What's that?
Just past Titanic.
That's right. In terms of let's talk about movies that are financially successful. So what are you talk a lot about Marvel movies. I also listened to an episode where you broke down Logan pretty well, and which is a great movie. But what are your top 3 Marvel movies?
Man,
why?
You've gone deep, dude. I mean,
the B-side.
We want to know you, Mike.
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. This is kind of like a new experience for me, because usually I'm on the other end of it saying like, oh, well, I like your show because of this. I like your music because of that. It's kind of weird, quite honestly, to kind of have that shoe on the other foot. But
oh, well, forget it then. You can talk about us.
No, I still like to talk though. But I mean, okay, so are we talking MCU or are we talking just Marvel in general?
That's up to you. Any Marvel related, but it doesn't have to be in the. It could be an X-Men. It could be in the Sony Marvel.
You may interpret this question in whatever.
Whatever strikes your immediate fancy.
All right. Well, I'll go 3 different directions then. I will go. My number 3 is Spider-Man 2. Because I think
that's a good choice.
I think you take a villain that's kind of schlubby in Dr. Octopus and you make him relatable and charming and all of that other stuff in his own. I mean, it's fat Alfred Molina with robot arms, and yet you care about this guy, and it really speaks to I think in what a lot of the other movies miss is why Peter Parker is Spider-Man and why he chooses to put on the costume and do what he does. You know, the whole power and responsibility thing. And I think you see that in the train sequence. You know, it's like where, you know, he knows he's unmasked and all that other stuff, but, you know, he still has that obligation to do whatever he can, no matter the cost. And I've always liked that. And I don't think, I mean, I liked Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay. It's fine. I could do without Spider-Man having a friggin' Iron Man suit, but that's neither here nor there. But
is it? Because it seems like it is here and there because you brought it up.
Two is definitely the best of the Raimi trilogy, and I didn't actually watch the Andrew Garfield ones. But I thought Homecoming was great as well. But two is special. Spider-Man 2 of the Raimi,
and we're huge Raimi fans over here. By the way.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's true. Yeah, so what's number 2?
Logan.
Oh, that was a fantastic.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because
so beautiful,
because
such a great cap to,
noir,
to
but
like
yet
a Hugh Jackman
happy movie.
Very
and the thing that I've said about this is that, you know, Logan gives you something that we have never seen in a superhero franchise or superhero movie before, an ending. And a pretty damn satisfying one. And, you know, it's haunting and it's brutal, it's violent, it's beautiful. And, you know, we haven't seen this. I think the closest thing we have now is, you know, the current staple of MCU people, you know, maybe RDJ as Iron Man, Chris Evans as Captain America. But nobody else can match Hugh Jackman's record of being Wolverine for 17 years.
Oh, that's
and
when you say it, when you put it that way, it makes me feel really
If you go back and watch the first like 2 X-Men movies, you're like, wow, he's really small. Yeah. Like compared to how ripped he is later, like it's amazing. But like, yeah, it's also in addition to Deadpool, it's an example of like, yes, R-rated superhero movies work. Like
absolutely,
R-rated movies are valid. Like, why did we ever get away from this?
Right, and part of me still hopes that just based upon the success of Logan and Deadpool, that I just hope we don't see a wave of R-rated superhero movies just for the sake of it. I mean,
for the sake of it, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure we will.
These have been, we will, right? We will, but those were done right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you know, for example, you have like that extended cut of Batman v Superman: Dawn of the Rise of the Justice Carnival or whatever the fuck that is, and yeah, it's like, ooh, it's grim, I mean, it's dark, it's R-rated, ooh, it's like, and you can keep all that.
Yeah,
shit.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I actually prefer the MCU, like the Avengers, being PG-13. I don't think R would work with that.
I agree.
Right,
but like with Wolverine and Deadpool, especially, that's all. I mean, the books are about murder.
There's a place for everything. I think that depending on where the story's going and what you want to express, you know, put it in the right
hole.
Put it in the right hole, Ryan. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to number 1.
Right. Yeah, because we gotta get moving. We got stuff to do, man. But no, this is awesome. This is really good. And my number 1 has got to be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It is the Dark Knight of the MCU. You know, it's a crackling spy thriller, cleverly disguised as a superhero movie. It's you know, it's you know, there's intrigue, there's
Bourne-esque aspects.
Absolutely, to it, and I still like the hair still stands up on my arm with that first fight between Captain America and the Winter Soldier, where he does like the knife flip, and because like it's all kind of Bourne-esque, kind of blurry, fast action, kind of close quarters melee combat, but Winter Soldier is doing this thing where he's like trying to slash at him with a knife. But he like tosses it up in the air and catches it with his other hand, and he does it like a couple times. It's really, really cool. There's some problems with that. Like I don't know how excited I am about, like, you know, some of the Nick Fury stuff, especially like his lightsaber that can cut through.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a little. It's like
jangly. A reference, a wink, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're going to do that, at least make it purple. You know, I mean,
Right.
if you're going to do it, then just fucking do it. And it's funny because, like, even though I kind of put that at my top, it's probably one of the Marvel movies that I've seen the least, just by coincidence. It's like, you know, I've watched Guardians of the Galaxy far more times, or like, you know, the first Avengers, you know, a handful more times, because it's a great movie, but
it's a tough watch though.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of humor.
It's
in
a
it
downer.
At all. Yeah,
but in a good, like, sometimes I think there's too much humor in some movies. Like, not, I feel like the MCU gets it pretty right. I feel like in some of the Star Wars movies, there's a little bit too much humor.
Yeah.
But like, I like that one, but it's not like Avengers, where after I'm done, I'm like, God, that felt good.
Fair enough. Yeah, you know, you know what, that first Avengers movie is probably, even with its problems with the, you know, especially like the Loki pokey stick, it's like, you're a bad guy now. You're a bad guy now. But I mean, that's still, I mean, who would have thought when we were kids that we would get all of the Marvel superheroes, you know, the B-level Marvel superheroes. We're not talking the Avengers. I mean, I'm sorry, we're not talking Spider-Man, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. You know, we're getting what really, I mean, when we were growing up, the Avengers were kind of like the B-level people. And to see that is kind of like the measurement of what all of these, I mean, if you had told me 20 years ago that they would make a movie about the Justice League and it would suck ass and be unfavorably compared to an Avengers movie, I probably would have slapped the taste out of your mouth, because
you're right.
Because that just sounds absurd, right? I mean, it's the Justice League, for Christ's sake. I mean, you got Batman, you got Superman, you got Wonder Woman, you got Green Lantern, but not in that movie.
It is an example of, like, with the MCU, they surpassed expectations and succeeded in spite of, like, limitations. Whereas the Justice League had everything, like, it's all there. How do you fail? They found a way.
It's all about it's good. It's good creativity. It's good writing.
It's characterization and writing, and caring about the material. I think
it's kind of like people that are talking about like an animated movie from their childhood, and
like Transformers the movie. You think
it's like people it's about people like talking about a movie from that time and turning it into something entertaining.
So speaking of writers and creators, I'm going to use that as a point to transition for just a second.
Okay.
Before we hop into the main body of this episode, I actually have a million questions I was wanting to ask you about indie rock, and I was going to ask you about DJ Khaled, but I'm going to try and keep it nerd centric for a minute and say, just to follow up on that. Late last year, you also talked about your best and worst Stan Lee cameos in a Marvel movie. I believe you rated the Stan Watchers scene from Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as among the top, and the barber Stan from Thor Ragnarok as the worst. And I think that's a good estimation. But you didn't mention, and for good reason, because I think you were only covering Marvel movies, you didn't mention my favorite Stan Lee cameo, which is in the movie Mallrats.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? It's funny. It was in my notes, and I did drop it for exactly that reason, because everything else that I covered, because, like, you know, he shows up in X-Men movies and in Spider-Man movies, so not just MCU, but yeah, that one was enough of I'm like, and this episode's already going super long. Okay, fine, I won't talk about, because I would have just slipped into this whole Kevin Smith, you know, influence type thing, because I mean, we, you know, a couple weeks ago when we were on my show, you know, we kind of talked about Clerks a little bit, but you know, Mallrats took what Clerks was and pushed it that much further. It's like, you know, so we go from making, you know, Star Wars jokes to now we're talking about Mr. Fantastic's dick and you know, you know how you know, sex with the Invisible Woman, and like, you know, much like, you know, the Star Wars stuff, you know, the comic book stuff, it's all stuff we've all thought. And you know, Kevin Smith put it all up on the screen, and you know, he was probably amongst the first to do that type of, you know, referential humor that we can't seem to get away from now. But, you know, yeah, I mean,
think about it. If he had an orgasm, he'd shoot like a shotgun through her back. The only way to get fuck is with a kryptonite condom. Thanks, but that would kill her.
And that would kill her.
So I bring that up also to I'm trying to Nardwar you here. Do you know who Nardwar is by any chance?
I don't know what that is.
First, okay, I'll send you some links.
Okay.
You need to,
All right. Very
need
good.
to look up Nardwar videos. He is a music interviewer from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and he gives the most amazing interviews to musicians. But at any rate, so
probably learn
speaking of Mallrats,
Yeah.
you recently met Kevin Smith. So
I did.
Take a couple minutes, juxtapose your experience of meeting, talk about your experience of meeting Kevin Smith, and also then juxtapose it with your experience of meeting William Shatner, because these are two of Ryan Jett's heroes.
Well, I thought you were going to say the meeting us.
Wow.
So
okay.
these are two of Ryan Jett's heroes, and I would love to have for our listeners recount those stories, please.
He always tells the story about the SeaTac Mall, and like he had an uncle that lived in Federal Way, and he would talk about going to the SeaTac Mall on kind of like his last stop before he went to film school in Vancouver. So whenever he comes to the Pacific Northwest, he always kind of tells the SeaTac Mall story, and I'm like, I live a mile from there. I drive past that every day. But anyway, so he was in town, played a bunch of shows, but he was doing a signing at a local independent comic shop. This was kind of like, a hole in the wall. And since we're talking, I'll give him a shout out. That's Destiny City Comics in Tacoma, because I mean they put together a really, really good event. They charged a price for it, which was ridiculously reasonable. I think it was just kind of more a crowd control type of thing, rather than just making it free for all. But basically, instead of having like an item limit to get signed, it was by time. So you had 60 seconds with them. So you could bring like your stack of comics, and it's funny because 60 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, right? It's like, oh my god, a minute, that's all. I swear by the time I got done, because I brought a bunch of comics that he had written, like his Daredevil stuff, his Green Arrow stuff, Spider-Man, as well as Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob comics. So by the time I had him sign my books and talking to him for a hot second, I swear I left with still time on the clock.
Wow.
Because I mean, it was just I got a picture with him, and it was he's one of the most warm and genuine people I think I've met. Because I roll up to him, and I don't know, maybe this is the adult in me, but whenever I roll up to meet somebody, I extend my hand and say, "Hey, I'm Mike." And he's like, "Kevin, how you doing?" Gives me a really good handshake. And we I told him, I go, one of my goals in being here would be just to look you in the eye and say thank you for influencing so much of what I do. Because I couldn't quantify or calculate all of the different ways I've been influenced by Kevin Smith. I mean, obviously podcasting here, but other stuff as well. Just like my it informs my sense of humor, it informs my sensibilities, and I just wanted to thank him for that. And he's like, "Thank you, man. That's. I mean, it was almost like, go back to Mallrats. Go back to Clerks. It's almost like, that's beautiful, man." There was a lot of that. He gets very warm and genuine about stuff, and we just kind of talked about podcasting for a few minutes. And he tells me that he's continually blown away by people sharing with him like what episodes they're on. It's like, oh, I'm on episode 5, on episode 500, I'm on episode 100. He's like, and it's great. And yeah, I just, I kind of had this internal clock in my head going, and he was almost, I don't know if this is rude or not, but he was almost kind of like in mid-sentence, and then I kind of do the lean, I kind of throw my arm over him and kind of guide him a little bit towards where the guy was taking pictures, and got my couple pictures, and again, like I said, I've got like this internal clock going. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you signing my books. Shook his hand and left. And again, presumably,
you're like, geez, that guy was clingy.
Exactly. So I mean, and I walked out of that store feeling like I was 10 years old. I mean, I could just feel it in my chest, just that beaming feeling. And I was just like, That was so cool.
All in that Kevin Smith afterglow.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've heard he's always made a point to be really nice to fans and to be just a nice person in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I saw that you have a picture of that on your Twitter of you and Kevin Smith, and I'm glad Aaron asked that because I was curious as to how that happened as well. But yeah, I mean, he just seems like a genuinely nice person.
Mr. Shatner, on the other hand, is
See, this is why I don't want to meet my heroes.
yeah, and you know what? And I talked about this on that episode. It really is up until I had that experience with Kevin Smith. I was team don't meet your heroes because he came to a local comic convention here in Seattle, and it was one of those things where it's like you have to like pay your money separately and then get into like a separate line. So this set me back, let's say significantly more money than it did for Kevin Smith. You know, you pay your money, you grab which glossy photos you want, and you go into another line. It took forever for some weird reason, given how the story ends. But you hand your things to a handler.
Okay.
The handler then passes it across the table to Mr. Shatner. Then you walk over and Mr. Shatner autographs your items. Meanwhile, you are staring at the top of his head.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, Mr. Shatner, I've huge fan. Your portrayal of Captain Kirk is, one of my favorite characters and has meant so much to me. Kind of like a truncated version of my thing with Kevin Smith, where I just wanted to look him in the eye and thank him, because I mean, Captain Kirk is a very important character to me. He's almost kind of like that, Optimus Prime type archetype, where it's just it's a purely heroic swashbuckling hero. Absolutely. And yeah, he didn't look up, didn't shake my hand. I asked him if he could personalize the autographs. He said no.
Okay.
And then just kind of sent me on my way. And so as a last gasp, I'm already disappointed at this point. And he was on a show called Boston Legal at the time. I don't know. Yeah. So it's
a great show. Yeah.
Fantastic. In fact, I'm totally due for a rewatch. I think enough time has passed where I can go back to it now. But I asked him, I go, well, so there's a lot of people here that they're fans of they're fans of Denny Crane. So can we get a Denny Crane for the crowd? And he's like, we don't do that.
He said it as a we.
He said, we don't do that. Again, as he is staring at the table, and at this point,
he never looks at you.
Yeah, never made eye contact. I got to see the top of his head, and I tell you what, I could not discern whether that is a rug or not, because I got a good look at it.
I think it's a famous rug.
It is. I mean, he probably has a really nice one.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I still will say I love his work. It's too bad it has to be like that. At least at that situation.
Maybe it was a bad day. I don't know. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know. That's why I'm just like, I just don't want to meet anybody.
Yeah,
I think I've heard he's notorious for that as well.
See, and that was the thing, like
dickish behavior.
I talked to my wife about that, and she's like, but I thought he had a reputation of being difficult and prickly and stuff. She almost kind of gave me like the "what else did you expect" type of.
Yeah, she's like, "Hey, that's your fault, asshole."
Yeah, which
for getting your hopes up.
Which I did not need at that point, because I was like, I mean, I'm a grown ass man, but I was devastated. Like it's the inverse of the Kevin Smith story. As beaming and as the afterglow as that was, I was crushed. Like
$85 or whatever it was.
So you left this situation as a devastated 10-year-old, right? Right?
Absolutely. I felt like Ralph Wiggum bending his Wookiee. He's like, I bent my Wookiee.
Well, let me ask you this though. You were in a long line, I presume. Did you see
the look of shattered disappointment?
The attitude of the line as it progressed, and it's almost like you saw your future of depression sort of getting closer to you as the minutes went by?
it's interesting because either one, I didn't pay close enough attention because he's signing all kinds of stuff. Like somebody had like a Starship Enterprise that he was signing, and I've seen like all kinds of like memorabilia going through there. So I didn't really pay close enough attention to. I was watching more what people were bringing. More so than how he was doing. Plus, like I mentioned, line buddies earlier. I was making friends, so I was more fixated on what the conversations I was having.
Yeah. And you're a man of the people, Mike. You're a man of the people. You were talking.
If anybody's making line buddies,
that's right.
It's Mike Seibert over here.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's actually one of my favorite things about going to like Comic Cons and things like that. Is
we have to go.
Yeah,
guys, we have.
I've never been to a con.
It's a constant.
Let's go to TF Con Chicago, man.
I know. It's just a matter of coughing up the funds and dealing with the family.
Well, maybe you can host a panel there. Host a panel at TF Con.
Honestly,
come on, man.
I think it would be awesome
for the Autopod
Decepticast. I think TF
Decepticast.
Con Chicago is in a few months. I think I can't remember. It would be awesome. All we would have to do is reach out and either get a yes or no. But I think doing a live show would be a lot of fun. Honestly.
Let's reach out. If we get a yes, that's justified. I'll bring the kids along. They'll love it.
I'm sure they will. Ryan's not going to be edited.
No. Oh God.
But
so those are great stories. I will say that I've only been in line for. I'm sorry. I've never been in line to meet anybody famous. I've seen, but I have in Las Vegas. I had some time to kill. This was a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I had some time to kill, and I was walking through Caesar's Palace and the kind of the shopping district on the inside of that.
Yeah.
And there was like a sports and Hollywood memorabilia store, and I just go in there to see like some of the memorabilia that's in there. And I go in and I realize that Pete Rose.
He's always in there.
Pete Rose is sitting at a table by himself, just sitting there to sign and do whatever for like $100 a pop or something like that.
Oh my
God. And
God.
I what I do recall is I think you had to sign. He had stuff for sale. He would only sign stuff that you bought from him.
Yep.
And I just remember feeling like, oh man, this is really sad because it's not like there was a line out the door like to meet Shatner or Kevin Smith. It's because he's always there. Like he's basically employed, I guess, by this memorabilia store. And it was just really weird. I'm just walking around the store trying to see like little movie props or
you keep catching him out of the side of your
posters. But he's always just there in the corner, right, just sitting at this table, looking depressing and grumpy and Pete Rosey. And I just felt like, oh man, like I'm like Pete Rose is in his position because of Pete Rose, but like it just I don't know. I felt really weird about it. That's my only experience seeing a celebrity at a table signing stuff.
My celebrity story is nothing real. It's not like that at all. But I thought I'd bring it up since it reminded me. I went to London. I went to Westminster Abbey, and I'm standing there in Westminster Abbey, and we're like sitting around looking at like in the floor of Westminster. They've got like famous people are buried in the floor of Westminster, or they have a.
You can pee on them.
And so we. I usually just.
Thanks for the pity laugh for him.
He just walks over.
Mike, I usually just talk right through that. So anyway, I'm in there and we see like the main doors of Westminster open and people are coming through it, and that's normally the exit door. So, but anyway, we were like looking at all these famous people on the floor, and we're standing around the Winston Churchill one, and these people walk up and I look up and like from me to you, it's this is the late '90s, but it's Bill Clinton.
What? What?
Yeah.
How have I never heard this story?
Yeah.
You could say it's the late '90s or today. That's still an amazing guess. But it is more relevant.
Wait, is he still president?
No, not in the late '90s.
No, it's post-presidency.
Okay.
It's post-presidency.
Hey there, Caleb.
However, the one
it's great to meet you.
Yeah, well, I should have.
That's
I mean,
a nice
I should.
dress
Being
you
that
got
we're
there.
from. What'd you say, Mike?
It's a nice dress you got there.
Yeah.
touch my saxophone. Got a cigar for you. Come over here, boy. Have a cigar. You going to go far? My blue dress.
Pink Floyd reference.
I know, right?
Well, we're standing there, and we're standing on these, kind of looking around these basically people that are buried in the floor or whatever. They have a plaque in the floor. The one thing and I looked at it and I should have said something, I didn't, but the one thing I remember him saying as he said, he goes, so you mean we're just standing on them?
Oh man.
I should have said something like, hey, I'm a Missouri guy. I know you're from Arkansas. I'm here from the United States. I was.
You should have been like, let me smell your fingers.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If only you were there with me.
I know.
So anyway, there's my. I wouldn't say I was standing in line, but that's my. Standing next to a famous person story.
So sorry, this is a classic APDC tangent. Circle R. Since we're talking about celebrity sightings, I did have one. I don't think I told you guys about this.
I think you talked about it.
Did I? In New York?
No, this is different. A new
you're thinking of my Killer Mike celebrity sighting. No, this is in New York City. You guys will like this. So we were staying in Brooklyn at a hotel called the William Vale, which is a super trendy hotel, and it's a place where people have events. Sure. And there was an event while I was there for a show that I should look up the name of. It's whatever Tracy Morgan's new show is. Do you know what the name of that show?
It's like Back in the Hood or something.
No,
no, it's
something like that.
You mean his new one, the one on like TBS or whatever the hell?
Yeah,
I think it's The Last OG.
The Last OG. Yeah, that's close.
Edit all that out. Nope. Back in the Hood, you racist.
Oh, shut up. He's making it seem like any of this is getting into the episode. BT Dubs.
And that might be the premise of the show, actually, of being back in the Hood. But anyway,
it is. That's why I thought that.
So at any rate, I'm there on work, and our team is having a meeting in kind of one of these meeting rooms in the hotel. And as we come out, there's like we go in the room, we have our meeting for an hour, and we come out, and there's this whole like red carpet setup in the like right in the kind of vestibule area or more of an atrium area where we were. It's like that whole kind of Hollywood backdrop of like the logo of the show and all that kind of stuff, and then the red carpet, and there's it's corded off, and there's camera people and everything. At any rate, we left, and I was like, oh, I bet you Tracy Morgan's going to be here. But this is probably like a little premiere party for that show. So we left. We had dinner and all that kind of stuff. We end up coming back to the hotel later, and we're having drinks in the bar of the hotel. And we go outside for a second, and as we're there, Tracy Morgan walks right by us, and a gal that is with us, she doesn't even actually recognize that it's Tracy Morgan for a second, but he is wearing this outlandish gold chain, and he has a very beautiful woman with him, and they are walking their way to like this, I don't know if it was a Ferrari or Lamborghini that was parked out front, some fancy, very expensive car, and she yells out, I love your chain. And he's like, thank you, baby. and hops in the car, and he's there for like 20 minutes. And
wait, he's in the car for 20
minutes? Yeah. It's like he hopped in the car. He didn't pull out.
So he was definitely getting a blowjob.
Well, no. There was like a ton of people just standing around.
Yeah, because he's getting a blowjob.
So much the better.
Yeah. And so at any rate, we come to find out, yes, his premiere party was there, and they were throwing a party on the top level of the hotel, which is typically open to the public, and it has a great view of Manhattan. It's got an amazing view, and we'd spent several nights going up there for kind of nightcap drinks. But apparently that night they had rented it out, and Busta Rhymes was up there performing the private party. So me and a couple other guys who are sitting out here with this group of people that are like just staring at this. We can't even see Tracy Morgan at this point. We're just staring at the car that we know Tracy Morgan is in. We're like, well, let's go see if we can sneak into that party, right? Yeah. And so we go and hop in the elevator.
That's exciting.
We take it all the way to the top, and we get out, and we start to walk the hallway that leads to that sort of bar, and it's quiet. Like you could tell, like the party's over, right? It's kind of done, and so we're kind of like, I guess it's over, and we'll just turn around and
yo.
Right around. I was like, yo, bust the bus. No, the celebrity sighting doesn't get that good, unfortunately, but it is an interesting interesting one in that we realize that the party's over. They're kind of cording off the entrance to the main bar. So we turn around and there's like this table with a box of sandwiches and they're all still there. And I'm like, oh man, I bet they had some pretty good sandwiches at a party like this.
Oh my God.
And coming out from around that hallway that just got corded off, and you may or may not know who this is, but he goes, they were pretty good sandwiches, was a very, I would consider him to be famous music journalist. I'm going to mispronounce his name, Torre. Are you familiar with him?
Nope.
He
Not even a little. Sorry.
Okay, well, you would recognize it. He's mostly a hip hop journalist.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's been on MTV forever, VH1, like any time you need a go-to guy that knows anything
So
about
he
hip hop,
validated
they
the
bring him in.
sandwiches.
And he validated the sandwiches, got in the elevator with us. I had a conversation with him. I was like,
Oh man, I wish you would have grabbed the sandwiches.
I was
I thought that's where this was going.
I was like, yeah, we were coming up here to see Busta Rhymes, and Torre was like, yeah, Busta Rhymes puts on a really good show. And I was like, I bet you've probably seen Busta Rhymes several times. He's like, yeah, I have. And I'm like, but I know who you are. You're Torre. And he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah.
And that's when he was like,
love what you do, whatever. We got to the bottom floor and parted ways, and he was a perfect gentleman. So, yeah, but like he's like a kind of a celebrity. I would call him a celebrity rock journalist. People know who he is.
Well, to that I say,
the Hunter S. Thompson of hip hop, although he doesn't really write like that on drugs and stuff.
Well, to that I say, woo-ha!
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
great.
you guys, it's time for it's time to recap the last episode
All
real
right.
quick, and let me. Ryan's probably like, I actually had a dinner date or something like that. Well, it's over now, motherfucker. Call West up and tell her she's eating by herself, mac and cheese.
Oh, man.
So last episode, we had Ultra Magnus's plan of drawing the Decepticons away from the shuttle was a total disaster.
almost immediately fell apart.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I guess not his fault,
No.
but still funny to witness. Daniel was once again left in a dangerous position as Blur and RC abandoned him to a hail of gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that Daniel can transform. That was
pretty
important.
cool. Yeah.
That was.
It was actually because, like I said last episode, he's becoming effectual. Like something, he's actually starting to do things now where I don't hate him anymore.
right. He's contributing to the. He's adding value.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended the minute with the Decepticons bulldogging the Autobots from above. So as we opened up on 5701, we see Ultra Magnus and Perceptor. They're firing into the sky, taking shots. Perceptor even gets knocked down by some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Ultra Magnus commands the crew to find some cover because, he's got this. He's going to unleash the power of the Matrix, man.
It's weird. It's like you said several episodes before, Aaron, Unleash the Power of the Matrix. I mean, it seems to be, again, treating it like a Swiss Army knife.
Right.
Like it's just like, well, any situation that's even a little bit of pushback will open the Matrix, and I just imagine a spectral Optimus Prime like just face palming.
Well, see, I'm surprised that he didn't whip that shit out when Cup and Hot Rod bought it. So I think when he tells Springer that he can't deal with it, it's because he's working some controls and just can't like open up his chest cavity. He's like, I can't deal with this now. I can't reach because I mean, he's such a boob.
I feel like with that he should have just opened up the Matrix before they left Earth whenever they were getting attacked down there. I'll use the power of the Matrix to keep the Decepticons away.
Well, he says that too. He's like, back on Earth, and I don't mean to backpedal too much, but he's like, maybe the Matrix could stop it. I mean, because
exactly.
he establishes that shit like from jump. Like as soon as he gets it, he's like, this is pretty cool. I have no idea what it does, but I bet you it does everything.
It's like when you've got a hammer, all of your problems are nails.
Oh God.
Okay.
It's just like that.
I like that. But
It's like when you're backed into a corner, all of your answers are aphorisms.
But man, I tell you, I really like the music here. It's it's kind of like a variation of kind of like the Battle of Autobot City type of thing. It's kind of like it tries to tie in that same sense of dread. I don't think it quite does it, but I could see what it's kind of trying to invoke at least.
we don't do a good enough job of breaking down the minute, like or each of the Vince DiCola tracks.
Yeah.
We do tend to get into the sort of more band soundtracky type things, but the music on this part is great. We talk a little bit about a couple episodes ago the wheelie segment. It's one of the creepier that I'd never noticed before. Creepier musical segments I've listened to. Like there's this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like the musical equivalent of a pile of crawling maggots.
That's good.
It's a really strange sequence.
Kind of like video game, like 8-bit, like chaotic weirdness, like
but especially in your headphones too. It's like, you kind of like hear that trilling, and it's just like, ooh, it's like
absolutely.
some Wrath of Khan stuff there.
Although I think we can also cut Ultra Magnus some slack. As I've mentioned, he has had leadership of the Autobots for a day.
Right. Just cut him no slack. I hate that guy.
Well, it's been a very stressful day.
The crew kind of gathers in sort of a junk cave here, which Ultra Magnus then fires upon to kind of seal the entrance and protect them. They all say "till all are one," and in unison. And Ultra Magnus kind of turns to face the threat and says, "Till all are one."
They think that's their big moment.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think that they're just trying to create a vibe of positivity. I think as Ultra Magnus turns around, the way he delivers the line almost feels hopeless. Like he realizes he's just about to die, and all he's doing is granting some sort of sanctuary for his team.
I just think that they should have said that. There's been plenty of opportunity for them to do that before, like when they're crashing, or actually every time I see the Autobots.
It is true. They haven't really called back on that line as much.
They should be just saying that all the time.
So you think it should be like their Yo-Joe, basically? Like Yo-Joe, till all are one. I mean, it's a little clunky for that, but yeah, I mean, no, awesome hero shot of Ultra Magnus at like 5709 there, where he like turns around. It's pretty heroic looking. And I think
jump he does over the pile of junk is pretty cool. Look, he's got a very athletic, sort of acrobatic jump. It's a stylized leap, if you will.
Well, and I think all of his friends earlier were just kind of grateful that they weren't crushed by all of like the junk they just kind of haphazardly blasts away. Because I mean, they're just kind of like
structural integrity of this planet. I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys heard it as we were listening to it earlier, but Nelson Shin actually snuck in a little lightsaber sound effect in this sequence. Like it's like the lightsaber opening up sound effect was the sound of some of the lasers.
Yeah, it's like one of the blast hits. Yeah, it's like a blast hit on the surface. It's like. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there are a lot of lightsaber sounds in this movie.
It's almost like he had access to the hard drive of sound effects.
The tapes.
Cyclonus, at this point, we're at right around 57:15. He's closed off, which, by the way, 57:12 is a great heroic angle.
The bottom-up shot.
There's a bottom-up shot of Ultra Magnus. He looks like, and also just the shading, like there's a lot of darks along with some mid-tones and some bright tones. It looks like he's standing in a sunset, the sunset of his doom, perhaps. Right. So he turns to face the impending threat, and at that point we have a very, if not wonderfully illustrated shot, still a very cool and dynamic shot.
It's freaking cool. It's freaking cool.
So diving close to the ground, sort of, swooping parallel to the ground, then back way up into the sky. And at this point, Galvatron ejects himself, does some very gymnastical moves on the way down, and Cyclonus kind of does the same thing and transforms and lands at about the same time.
Well, and I like how they kind of like avoid the question of the mass shifting, because it's like, is Cyclonus the size of Galvatron? Does Galvatron shrink down to fit in Cyclonus? When Cyclonus goes that high up into the air, I know, little teeny tiny Galvatron, it's like, hey, who else will fill those shoes? I want the Matrix. But no, I like, it's a really cool cheat where they just kind of go out of frame a little bit and they both just kind of reappear normal size, and it just I just think it looks cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it does look cool. Because I mean, you've got like some lighting effect. There's like a almost like a starburst type of thing that kind of comes out of Cyclonus's engines as he, kind of thrusts up and all that. It's really cool. And again, like we talked about Magnus earlier. There's a surprising amount of gymnastics in this minute. Everybody's doing like extra flips and spins and jumps and stuff. It's very dynamic.
It kind of something we talked about in other episodes. There are certain points of this movie that are more, for lack of a better phrase, anime-esque.
Yeah.
And I think this sequence is one of those that is more, one being the transformation of Autobot City, just the way they sort of extend the sort of foreshortening and I don't know, that like certain extremities.
It's usually when
certain extremities are extended longer than, like in this sequence, like we're paused at 57:19. Like I feel like Magnus's antennae and just sort of the angle and the way they do it are more dynamic in that sort of anime way that we think of it as 80s, 90s anime.
Physically dramatic.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
I think a lot of it is also depths of field where you have like close up, mid, and far ground.
Sure, yeah, and some of them aren't so much that. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, this is like, I mean, I guess this is a Korean production in essence, or an American production via Korea. So I don't know if it counts as anime, but it certainly has all those influences.
It's a very anime-esque a moment in the movie.
At around 57:19, where we pick up, Magnus rather struggles to open the Matrix. The scene changes from to a behind Ultra Magnus point of view. We see Galvatron and Cyclonus. They approach Magnus as he continues to labor over it. This is where the classic line "Open, Dammit Open" takes place. So
that blew my
mind. A lot
mind.
going on in those few seconds.
As a kid, that blew my mind when I heard that, because it's the one that just left in where I saw I did not see this in the theaters, and I saw the VHS copy, and so I did not hear the shit line that Spike delivers. Okay. So this is the first curse that I heard. But also the weird thing is, like, he can't open the Matrix, so the Matrix is like, no, bitch, but it like implies that the Matrix has sentience.
Sure. I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we've seen this. I mean, we see it later in the movie. Spoilers. We see it in Return of Optimus Prime. Spoilers. But I mean, the Matrix has a degree of cognition to it. And in fact, actually, let's go even further. The Matrix didn't open during Prime and Megatron's final battle, because the Matrix knew that, no, this is not their darkest hour. That's coming later. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Ryan. I think there is a definite some kind of cognition there to where it just, I mean, obviously it's because movie, but still, it's like, you see it not working, and then when it does work, it actually kind of makes sense. But a couple things I wanted to tack on with these couple seconds we were just talking about here. I like how Magnus is just yanking on the Matrix like a child. I mean, the thing's got like finger holes in it, and he's just like grabbing on it, and he's yanking on it and struggling against it. But the thing that I didn't notice this, and I mean, I've seen this movie a million times, but I don't know how many times I've watched it with headphones on. And like when Cyclonus and Galvatron walk in first, they're just watching him for a quarter second. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that. They're just watching him looking unimpressed. It's like,
let's watch this sack of shit struggle.
Look at this piece of shit over here. But when they enter the other side of the frame, it's almost like a Western, like gunfight at high noon. And there's this really cool stereo effect. Like you hear Cyclonus in your left channel, and then you hear Galvatron in the right channel.
Wow.
And
we've got it on mute right now.
Western's a good analogy for this. This is
it's very showdown-y.
It very much is. Even the way like Galvatron stomps his foot, it's very much, hey Pilgrim. But
into the Junkeon, so their feet make a big impression into the trash,
it's like smushing into
ground.
It. This is totally an 80s movie because Galvatron is totally wearing stirrup pants. You know, I used to think that was the coolest thing when I was a kid. Maybe because like I like DuckTales too, and Uncle Scrooge had like those spats that had like, you know, stirrups and straps in them, and I just always thought that look was super cool. Like
I've never thought of them as stirrup pants.
No,
like they're like metallic garters.
Nope,
Well, they totally are.
They will forever be metallic stirrup pants.
That's that episode title.
So this is maybe a bit of a divergence, but since we're talking about Ultra Magnus and his inability to open the Matrix, it takes me back to the whole Optimus Prime death scene when he first granted Ultra Magnus, and it's like, I mean, it's a question that can't be answered, but I guess it's fun to ponder. Was it was it always just meant to be that only Hot Rod could open it, right? Well, I think like Ultra Magnus was never really a true quote unquote Matrix holder. Well, he was just a vessel to keep it warm. He was just while Hot Rod waiting for Hot Rod to be ready for it.
There's things that the Matrix knows that even Prime did not.
Sure.
Right.
And Prime made a logical decision. When you look at Ultra Magnus in a lineup, I would say he'd be the best qualified.
Well, you're certainly not going to pick Hot Rod at that point in time.
No, certainly not.
Right.
Everybody would be like, what the fuck? Like, it's a Donald Trump thing.
Again, we should have picked Springer.
That's an important writer thing where it's like, if you're, you know, I think that's a good decision for the writers, for people that are watching the movie to know, like, I may not look like I'm the person that is destined for stepping up and accomplishing something like amazing, but I still have the possibility of achieving that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic hero's journey stuff. I mean, and that's all we're doing, and we're kind of in the phase where you have kind of like the false hero. And, you know, I mean,
I feel bad for Ultra Magnus, though. Like,
Sure.
it's a hero's journey, but he's like the goat of this thing.
Yeah, he's
like,
made some bad decisions.
I mean, it should have gone to Springer. I mean, from just a true, what was that?
Goat yell.
It's a sound effect.
That's a sound effect of goats yelling. One more time.
God.
You've never heard that before?
I've heard it. It's just in a non-visual format. It just sounds like someone screaming.
What was the video that was in the music video of? You know what I'm talking about, Mike?
Yeah. I can't place it, but I know what you're talking about.
Anyway.
Well, this is a good transition point to the next. So we're at about 57-27. Magnus can not open the Matrix.
Right.
We referenced the ground up shot. I never had thought of it, thinking of it in a spaghetti western standpoint, but it's great. Galvatron's left leg, Cyclonus's right leg, stomping through the garbage. They come to a stop. Ultra Magnus speaking to the Matrix, or really speaking, I guess, to Prime. Yeah, Prime. You said the Matrix would light our darkest hour.
Liar.
Now, I believe that we are to assume that, like, these sort of Unicronian
Taylor
Decepticons.
Swift. It was Taylor Swift.
Oh, Jesus
Christ.
This is the patented Caleb getting back to it, interrupting the conversation to get back to our thing.
Right, please.
Taylor Swift what?
Screaming ghosts.
Yeah, it was like, instead of like her going
Follow the money.
Trouble.
Okay, gotcha.
There you go.
Thank you.
I've thrown away off the rails.
2014.
Get back on track.
So I assume we're to believe that these Decepticons are souped up in a way like no Decepticons have been souped up before. I don't know if you can quantify it. Like, is Galvatron twice as powerful as Megatron? And I guess I say that to say, like, Optimus Prime, if he were in this position, you can't really compare the two, but I'm gonna, like, he would have been trying to fight these guys.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is, like, Ultra Magnus's death is really it's just like, this movie would have us believe the Autobots, with the exception of Prime, they're like as fragile as like a butterfly with influenza, or it's like, it's ridiculous how easily they die, and he doesn't fight, and it's like it feels just worthless.
If it were Prime against like Megatron and Starscream, he would be, karate chopping those guys. And like, I don't know if it's just that Galvatron and Cyclonus are so much more powerful.
But they don't even kill him.
Well, I guess they don't, but I mean, is it their? I mean, to me, it's only 2-on-1 by heroic standards.
Right.
That's easy, right? So, but yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know why this would even qualify as a let's break out the Matrix moment, right? I mean,
Right.
granted, there are
relatively
actually
limited-
a lot of Decepticons still out there floating around them, maybe, and he's about to get attacked by sweeps. But if you're just facing two guys, it feels like I'm just giving up. And
it's
this
a
is my only
fairly
hope.
limited threat to like pull out the nuclear option.
Right. Well, and to be fair, I mean, they're scary looking dudes. I mean, that's a lot of purple for two dudes. And I'd be like, ooh, I don't know. And that arm cannon is all glittery and gold. You know, kind of going back to the original G1 Galvatron toy. I mean, that was all glittery. But anyway, yeah. Maybe he was just he's a scared, because you know, if I had Leonard Nimoy drawing on me, maybe that might give me pause. I don't know if it would be enough to whip out the Matrix. But I mean, to your guys' point, yeah, it is kind of weird, and it does kind of paint Magnus as not exactly cowardly, but certainly not courageous to the level of, say, like an Optimus Prime or shit. Even Springer would probably be, whipping out his swords at this point.
I think Ultra Magnus at this situation just is in shock.
Yeah.
The thing that he was given by Prime doesn't work for him,
right?
And he's incapacitated as a result.
Sure, that's that's fair. That's definitely
he's
fair
in
point.
Shock.
But he shouldn't have whipped it out to begin with. He should have tried some karate moves or something first. One thing, and another thing, though, to also add even more credence to maybe his decision to pull out the Matrix is that these guys are still kind of an unknown element. Like, they've been attacked on Earth, but they haven't. I think that was all sort of an aerial assault. You haven't really this is really the first face-to-face that these characters have had, and knowing that you don't know for a fact that these guys are associated with that other threat called Unicron that we've heard a legend of, but you could probably make some assumptions, and you just know that you've never seen them, and they seem to be pretty tough customers, I guess.
Definitely.
All right, well, that brought that to a nice
No, I'm sorry. Yes, I agree.
So as we continue, Galvatron speaks, and he knows Magnus's name, which I guess if I were Magnus, I would be. Well, he should, because he's Megatron.
By his street name, he calls him Magnus.
Yeah,
right.
see,
also Unicron has said his name.
Yeah,
that's true.
A couple times at this point, he's like, their new leader, Ultra Magnus, destroy it for me and all that. But I love a couple things here. One, just the expressions on both Galvatron's face, and like this little smarmy smile that Cyclonus has. Yeah. I like that, and I didn't notice that before. But I again, it's vintage Nimoy here. He's all like, Magnus. I just love that. He's like calling him out. He's like, I want the Matrix, and it's just it's great.
That is also a great illustration of Galvatron. To back up to like maybe the 5731 or 2, there's a up close shot of Magnus struggling with the Matrix again, and he lifts it over his head. Yeah. That's a little bit of an awkward pose.
It's
actually
very awkward. You should not put Ultra Magnus's arms in the air. Like, it looks ridiculous.
Like he lives. It's like it's because he's got those giant shoulder things, whatever you call them. But at any rate, as we go into that, perfect shot of both Cyclonus and Galvatron looking quite cocky indeed,
schmarmy,
and
really confident in themselves.
And so, as Mike said, they want the Matrix, and really, this is the first point in the movie where there's admission that that's even their goal. I mean, they've been dogging these guys on Earth, in space, and now here on Junkeon, and as far as the Autobots are concerned, they're just like, these guys are dicks, but like randomly attacking us. But finally, it's like there's actually a goal here. We want that thing that's in your hands. Give it to me. and of course, Ultra Magnus is gonna say never, and that's when Galvatron makes the order for the sweeps to terminate him, and he points.
And they do.
in the most peculiar fashion. But
it's
weird.
I think we'll probably have a lot to say about that. But I also love the way Galvatron beckons for the Matrix. Yes. The great close-up shot of Ultra Magnus at 57, 38, 39-ish. You see his face. That's his defiant face. And then you see Galvatron just point at him and give like the death order.
Yeah, like seriously.
Well, and he like winds up too, he like kind of
does.
pulls his arm back and gestures boldly, and then kind of like does this like kind of closed fist type of thing. It's pretty cool.
So the next sequence here, we've got the sweeps. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and I think we're probably gonna have a lot to say about this. We can decide if it makes more sense as a post show, or we might as well. I mean, we're basically at the end of the minute. We can capture some of it. There's a lot of deviation as to what happens and how Ultra Magnus dies. But what we see on screen is an entourage of sweeps, and they descend upon Ultra Magnus. Each of them fire upon him, and he continues to hold the Matrix above his head. I counted the shots. He takes about 5 hits.
Right.
The laser fire ceases. Ultra Magnus crouches, kind of winces in agony. He's still clutching the Matrix. Galvatron, like he's hanging on for dear life, it feels like. Galvatron yells at him, "Die! Die!" Until finally he collapses. He loses his grip on the Matrix.
Which just flies conveniently right into Galvatron's head.
Yeah, he intercepts it. Hits the ground, sizzles a little bit, and then just fucking explodes.
Yeah, like a rear-ended Pinto.
And, and his body parts, including a severed head, go flying everywhere. And you cut to Galvatron, a very satisfied look in his face. He's got the Matrix in hand, and he says, "Unicron, my master, with this I shall make you my slave."
I got your ass.
And nice little shiny shine of the Matrix. He holds it right up to the camera as if to say, I don't know. I guess.
I got your ass. I got your ass. Basically.
So, and that really brings us to the end of the minute here. And actually, we went a little over it because by where we stopped, he says, "Unicron, my master, with this I shall make you."
Oh, really?
I'll make you. Well, so that closes out the minute, and that really brings us to the Deviations. Guys, I don't really have much that is that different from what we see on screen in my version of the script. The listener will recall that my version is closer to what we see on screen. Ryan has a version that is kind of an original first couple of drafts. And then we also have Mike on the line who has some extra stuff from the comic book and some extra, I think, some audio clips that sound very exciting. So just to get mine right out of the way, in my script, Ultra Magnus is struggling, and the interesting difference between what we see on screen and what happens in the script is that he's getting electric shocks while trying to pull. It's almost like the Matrix is punishing him for even trying to open the damn thing.
Like one of those terrible shock games that were popular like 8 years ago.
Right, yeah, exactly. Those popular things.
All right.
I don't know what you're talking about at all.
It's just sex thing.
Oh,
God damn it.
So Mike, what have you got for us?
Okay, so I got a couple things. Like you had mentioned, one of them is the original Marvel comic book adaptation from 1986, which I'll get to that in a sec. But first, hey Ryan. So you have the Lady Bird adaptation of the movie, right?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. The storybook, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in general. I mean, not with you or whatever, but...
Yes, exactly. Yes, so, I do possess it.
So when you got it, did it happen to come with a cassette?
No, it did not.
Oh, very good. Well, so that a little bit on that Lady Bird storybook is that not only is it a storybook, but there's an audio cassette that goes with it. It's meant to be a read-along book. So what you do is you put in the cassette, you listen to it and read along in the book. You know, it's kind of like to help kids read a little bit. And I did some digging, and I actually found the full audio from that cassette, and I have some audio from the Lady Bird adaptation that covers this particular minute. And
Great.
I thought it would be fun to share because it's interesting. So are we ready for a quick audio interlude here?
Please.
Let's do it.
All right, let's fire this up.
The Autobots made a fighting retreat down a long valley. The junk piled on either side gave some protection from the Decepticon fire. Ultra Magnus brought up the rear. He waited until the Autobots were cleared. Then he fired his laser weapon to bring down some of the junk as a barrier behind them. Now he stood alone before the fury of the Decepticon attack. From a ridge nearby, Galvatron watched. Ultra Magnus opened his chest compartment and took out the Matrix. It pulsed with power, but a special shield prevented its full power from being released. Ultra Magnus pulled, but the shield remained firm.
Prime,
He cried.
you said the Matrix would light our darkest hour.
Then, at a command from Galvatron, a flight of his evil warriors raced overhead, and a salvo of cannon fire blasted Ultra Magnus. Galvatron seized the Matrix with a cry of triumph, and the battle was over. The Decepticons withdrew victoriously as quickly as they had arrived.
So
Wow.
there's a lot to unpack.
That's intense.
I've never.
Holy
there's
shit! I
so
shit my
many lasers,
pants.
So many lasers.
I know they were constant, like wall-to-wall lasers.
That was awesome. Okay.
Oh my god. So yeah, so that was so many laser blasts. Okay, so moving on from that, so not a whole lot of differences there, but there is like this whole perspective of like this energy shield around the Matrix, which I hadn't really heard of before, and it's something that's not in this version from the comic book. So now
I wonder if that's relative to like the electrical energy they talked about shocking him, and maybe that was kind of the translation of that to that book form. And also, it was a missed opportunity. They never really showed Ultra Magnus
Open his chest.
Yeah, it was just in his hands all of a sudden.
And I will say that, like, on the cover of that Ladybird book, it shows Hot Rod. It's a real spoiler. Shows Hot Rod holding the Matrix, but it's just the core. There's no like handles or anything. It's just the shining core.
yeah, it's like a crystal ball.
like cell stuff.
No, it's an original. It's an original drawing for the book, for the cover of the book. It's the only original art in the book.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think you guys have covered this before, kind of like the evolution of the design of the Matrix. You know, it's like in different phases of production, it looks different. Like, you know, sometimes it looks like a crystal ball, other times it looks like a rock, other times it looks like, you know, the Matrix that we know. So that design went through several phases up until the final animation in the final movie. So I'm gonna read a little bit from this comic book. Now this was issue number 3 of the Transformers the movie adaptation from Marvel Comics. It was adapted by Ralph Macchio, and I have to warn you here, not the Karate Kid, the
Not that Ralph Macchio.
yeah, apparently this guy is like a guy that's a guy. Like, he's written like Spider-Man comics for like 30 years and is, you know, a pretty prolific writer in terms of Marvel Comics, but he's trying to do a lot with a little in this comics adaptation. It's bonkers because like all of the speech bubbles are full of exposition, so they try to do a lot. So I'm going to try to get through this as best as I can. So we're going to pick up where Cyclonus and Galvatron kind of show up. Cyclonus comes to a halt in midair as Decepticon leader Galvatron leaps out to confront Autobot Chief Ultra Magnus. So we meet again, Autobot fool. Unicron, the planet eater, informed me that you had not died in our last encounter and that I would find you on Junkeon, Galvatron says. You have something I desire. Give it to me now. Give me the leadership matrix. He says, pointing at it. And I'm going to take pictures of this to, you know, forward to you guys to put up on the website if you'd like.
Sure.
So Ultra Magnus is seen struggling with a prototype version of the Matrix. It's just kind of like a green block. And the caption reads, "The Matrix, an Autobot object of unbelievable power that was recently passed on to Ultra Magnus by the late Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. Why won't the Matrix open? Prime said the Matrix would light our darkest hour, and now I can't even remove it from its casing." To which
Pretty casual dialogue there. It's like, I can't get the cap open.
And also, way to show your hand to the bad guys in front of you.
Because like Galvatron's like right there. So the next panel, it's Galvatron pointing and kind of like what we see in the movie, and the sweeps over his shoulder. The fool can't even make the leadership matrix works. Sweeps, quarter him is the order. You turn the page. So it's a panel of Ultra Magnus standing. The 4 sweeps come down. There's laser beams emitting from them with sound effects that say spring, spring, spring with various I's and N's and G's. It's very dramatic. And then the next panel, no defense is possible as the stunned Autobot commander is lifted by the 4 Decepticon sweeps. And it shows him with laser ropes around his arms and ankles, and he's holding the green matrix cube. Despite Ultra Magnus's great strength, the beams begin to pull his trapped limbs taut. Inexorably, and actually in the illustration, there's like shaky lines, as like, he's being pulled. Inexorably, his body is stretched to the breaking point. Magnus says, I failed you, Optimus, failed you, and all those you left me to lead. I'm so sorry. So very sorry. And then in the next panel, he explodes, gets torn apart.
Yeah, we found a quick reference to this online. We're looking at this. That's really disturbing.
Isn't that brutal? That's the one. But then, I love this because it kind of matches the movie. The Matrix just kind of falls into Galvatron's hands, and he says, just what I'd hope would fall into my hands. And the last panel is him holding the Matrix, not unlike the final movie, except if I don't know if you could see it on your version, but it's just basically like it's a green cube. It kind of looks like a delicious lime jello treat, but it's got like this weird plug on the side, like like the cap that Ultra Magnus couldn't open or something like you were talking about earlier. Maybe it's some kind of weird plug of some kind. Nothing, Ryan, really?
No, well, I was gonna say maybe it's a fleshlight.
Yeah, there you go. It's like, I mean, somebody.
Sorry, I was just looking. I'm sorry, I was lost in thought of like I could fuck that cube.
We're so sorry he let you down.
I know. Right? I mean, it's like somebody's fucking that thing, right? But yeah, so Galvatron says the leadership matrix of the Autobots, its power incalculable. Unicron, my master, in quotes. With this, I shall make you my slave! Exclamation point.
I do like the way the Matrix. presumably that was. I think when that comic was written, they were working off of a mid-stage script.
Yeah, the movie was done,
and so they didn't really have any sense of where the design of the Matrix would go. I like the way it went on screen versus what we saw on the page there. Ryan, why don't you take it away? What I've heard rumor that we're in for an interesting ride here.
It's fucking strange.
Okay.
I'm going to compress some of this because it's like there's a lot, but basically when we left off, it's kind of the same where Galvatron is shooting at the Autobots as they're running away. In this one, he pulls Perceptor aside, and the shuttle isn't destroyed, and so he pulls Perceptor aside behind the shuttle, and Ultra Magnus says, "Did you do what I asked?" And Perceptor opens something like a steel attaché case, which has been clipped to his belt, sets it down.
Attaché?
Absolutely.
Attaché case, yes, sir.
I did, but the tolerances are not quite as close as I would have liked. But then, see for yourself. Perceptor transforms to microscope mode, and Ultra Magnus looks through the eyepiece into the attaché case. Perceptor voiceover. However, they should serve the purpose. View of inside of the case. In the case are small models of Blur, Springer, RC, and Perceptor in humanoid modes. Okay. This is where I wrote, what? Wow. And then Perceptor, each is a perfect pseudo-clone in every respect. Witness the transformation capabilities. The models each transform in unison into their robot modes, or into their alt modes, and then transform back again to humanoid modes. These models do not move, just transform. Ultra Magnus looks away and says, will they fool Galvatron when they attain full size? And Perceptor says,
is that John Wayne?
I've said it like 20 episodes ago I was going to do Ultra Magnus as John Wayne, and I've just remembered it.
Okay.
Perceptor says, of course, so long as they remain mobile, but there is every possibility Galvatron will realize they are fraudulent should termination take place. Okay. So,
wow, where are
Ultra
we
Magnus,
going,
so this
man?
is all happening while they're being fired upon by the
they're in like a little like sheltered area behind the shuttle.
Okay.
They're still being fired at. And then Ultra Magnus, say it plainly. If Galvatron examines the remains of the clones after he's destroyed them, he'll know he's been tricked. I can deal with that. Be ready. And I circled that with 3 exclamation points because I'm like, that's the first time he can deal with anything.
He does not say that. Holy shit.
He does.
He actually says he can deal with it?
I can deal with that.
That's amazing.
The Ultra Magnus ducks out and is racing away. And then Dirge peels off, firing at Ultra Magnus Perceptor as he draws an antenna-like apparatus from the back of the case, which contained the miniature clones. And then it starts pulsing with magnetic waves, and the small clones begin to grow and grow, rapidly expanding to resemble the full-size Autobots they will substitute for. It's like those magic grow crystal tablets you put in the water and they grow into like sponge dinosaurs.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yes, I guess you can understand what growing means no matter. I don't need like the analog of that.
I like that analog though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on RC, she hurdles uphill with the Constructicons chasing after her, firing, and then she crests the hill, and Astro Train, who's been lying in wait, clutches her and pins her to the ground. Ugh, and I'm like, ew. What? I wrote ew. Yeah. And he says, prepare for oblivion, little she-bot.
Oh man.
Yep.
That's uncomfortable.
That's a Weinstein con.
Astro Train starts to open the door to Flamethrower, which I don't know what that means. And then another angle is Daniel roars up over the hill from the opposite direction and reacts, transforming into humanoid mode, and he screams, RC! And Astro Train says, you're next, microbe. And then Daniel, as he quickly aims Exoglove at Astro Train, scarcely bothering to think, shouts, weld him! Oh, and Daniel's blast hits and melts his joints, fusing him into welded immobility. And yes.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, and then
kid's a little
RC's
psychopath. Jeez.
RC's like, let's move. So literally, she has been saved by a child who just learned how to use an exosuit.
Whom she just ditched on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. And then Blur shoots across the open area, the Decepticons firing missiles, and then suddenly, when in the gully, an explosion of camouflaged gas billows up, filling the gully. And everybody's like...
Camouflaged gas?
Yeah, it's convoluted.
Anyway.
I'm trying to, like, skip for time because it's so complicated. But, like, Blur says, what happened? Cough, cough. Where am I? And then there is another angle on Perceptor, who was holding a strange glowing lantern and beckons to Blur. This way, quietly. It's Ultra Magnus's plan. They enter the smoke area, and they've gotten everybody together except for Springer. And Daniel says, I don't understand what's going on. Springer springs into the smoke, looks around, pushes through, and emerges beside Perceptor. Because every time he moves, it says he springs. Mm-hmm. Ultra Magnus said to double back, but he didn't say anything about this. Please keep your orbital projection wavelengths on a low frequency. And then we see the clones, which are now full-size replicas of the Autobots, moving away, and Galvatron flies into the scene, and the Decepticons go through the valley, and Galvatron says, why do you hesitate? Are you afraid of a little camouflage smoke? Blast them and keep black. And then as the replicas roar out of the smoke, followed by RC Springer, or the Blur replica roars out, followed by RC Springer and Perceptor, each of which fires as the Decepticons and take off. And I'm like, okay, this is the point where I'm like, you can make clones that have offensive capabilities? Just do that.
You just have an army, yeah.
And then Galvatron says, stop them, exterminate them. Ultra Magnus is mine. This just seems like another excuse for butchering more Autobots because then they slay the replicas.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they just exterminate them. And then Springer says, but those copies won't deceive the Decepticons once they examine the remains. And I'm like, why are they so focused on examining the remains? I do not understand.
Well, they're looking for treasure, see if there's like gems and gold and jewels and
like when you build something in a video game.
Yeah, totally. Oh, there's a key in here. Sweet.
And then basically the Ultra Magnus is now the only one out in the open, and he's surrounded by Decepticons getting shot, and after all the replicas are dead, Ultra Magnus is now on one knee, still fighting, one arm hanging uselessly at his side, almost severed and sparkling and smoking. Whoa. And Galvatron says,
this is the real deal.
Yeah. This is the real. There was no Ultra Magnus clone. Mm-hmm. Galvatron says, I've waited for this instant, Ultra Magnus. First Optimus Prime, and now you. Ultra Magnus turns to Galvatron and hurls bombs at him, but Galvatron roars and transforms and point blank delivers a blast to his face. And he is shattered, body parts melting and strewn about, his torso and head with one flailing arm attached sinks and falls in a puddle of dying sparks.
Straight up execution.
Holy
I'm like,
shit.
damn, Friedman. Galvatron kneels over Ultra Magnus, and here's where we get into the buzzsaw. He extends a razor saw extension from his hand, brings it down on Ultra Magnus's chest, and says, "Now I shall have the final prize of conquest." Cuts into his chest and extracts the life spark of Optimus Prime, which, if you remember, in this script is not a physical object; it's a ghostly tiny Prime.
Right, he's like a little mini spy, basically. You know,
just like a tiny little white shining
As opposed
Optimus
to the
Prime.
Matrix of Leadership?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember whenever he passed it from Optimus to Perceptor, or from Optimus to Ultra Magnus like shot a beam into Prime's chest, and a ghostly Optimus Prime went out of his chest into Ultra Magnus.
There was no physical Matrix.
No.
That's the life spark.
It's the life spark, yeah. And he extracts the life spark and places it in a small bottle, which hangs around his neck.
Do they refer to it as the Matrix? Does he say anything like,
No,
the
they call it-
Matrix,
they call
I
it-
want it?
They call it the life spark.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
And so he hangs this bottle around his neck, which is like, I wondered how they would deal with the non-corporeal Matrix, so they just deal with it like he's catching fireflies.
Like Tinkerbell.
Yeah. And then Victory Czars return to Earth and stop all energy supply from Majester. And then intercut to Daniel and our friends during the Life Spark operation as they react with anger and sadness. And I'm like, well, but you fucking didn't do anything about it at all. And that's the end of that minute.
Wow. Binoculars. Binoculars. That's a cross reference between bananas and bonkers.
That's true.
Binoculars.
I enjoy it.
Thanks.
So, Mike, I think we've talked a couple times about a script that you have on hand. Is that similar to what you have?
You know what? Upon further investigation, I actually have the exact same script that Ryan does. So mine is unfortunately not any different. But I hadn't read that in a while, so I actually forgot about like the buzz sawing and stuff. But it cracks me up. Like as you guys were talking, I was flipping through this comic book here, and going way ahead. Galvatron has like the matrix around his neck, like it's shown later in the movie, but it looks like it could be like a jar type of thing, another one of those weird matrix designs. And I was just flipping through it, and I was like, holy shit, that looks like that could be the life spark chamber bottle thing that we were all talking about. But yeah, no, that's all I've got for extra stuff. It's bonkers though that Ultra Magnus dies, I guess technically 3 different ways. In the movie, he's felled by laser blasts, and like in the comic book here, he's drawn and quartered, and in the original script, he was just basically like gunned down and chopped open, and I don't know, guys, what is, I guess, the most brutal or the worst of all of these, because they're all pretty intense.
I would say that being drawn and quartered is worse than what ended up in the movie.
That's my vote too.
Really?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It looked pretty intense in the visuals from the comic book that we were flipping through on screen. Like it's just, but you're talking about though. He was in Ryan's version of the script. He was basically fairly incapacitated, and then Galvatron transformed into a cannon and just shot him right in the face.
Yep.
And that's like some ISIS shit.
Well, that's,
you know what I mean? Like that's freaky.
That's cold blood. But I would still say that being like drawn and quartered, Ultra Magnus would probably suffer more.
That's some William Wallace shit right there. Or some like
William Wallace
or Henry Longshanks. Oh, I thought he was drawn and quartered, at least in the movie Braveheart.
That's also done. I mean, he's stretched on the rack.
It's all of it, basically.
Andy, I think he had his dick cut off also.
Yeah, that's where he's disemboweled.
Okay.
Yeah, that's implied.
Good Lord.
All right, yeah.
Okay, God.
That's what you do when that's what happens.
I
when you mess with Eddie
Ultra
Longshanks.
Magnus, I would say drawn and quartered is the worst. But that's my opinion on the matter.
So I don't know. I think Ryan's thing is a little bit more brutal to me. Just the idea of just the execution, like just In the same way, every time I see a movie, I saw Book of Mormon last week in New York City, and there's a scene where a person gets their brains blown out, like pistol, and it's a comedy, right? But there's a scene where a guy gets his brains blown out, right? And that part just made me just feel gross.
But I guess to me, my thought is like, what would I rather have done to me? I'd rather be shot in the fucking head than have my limbs ripped off.
Yeah,
just for me as a viewer, I guess is what I'm looking at it as, not as a victim.
Oh, I put myself in everything, which is why porn is awesome.
Well, I mean,
I do that.
We go back to something we were talking about quite some time ago, and the brutal deaths in this movie, and I pointed to Prowls actually being the most brutal because you get like the orange smoke and the eye changes, and I think I was originally drawn and quartered, but I'm leaning more Team Aaron here because imagine how that headshot would be depicted in the movie. You would see like he would look. I'm imagining something kind of like the T-1000. Like when it takes like the shotgun to the face and it gets all bent ass shape and stuff. I think it would be a pretty brutal looking headshot, and then to basically have his corpse assist defiled with a buzzsaw, razor blade type thing, and have like the life spark, I guess, not the Matrix, but basically have this like chopped out of him. I think that might actually be a little more intense than drawn and quartering. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure up to the last minute they must have made the decision to not do the draw and quartering scene, because when you look at around 57:42, you see a quartet of sweeps flying in. They deliver laser shots that are not constant. Pulsing later. Exactly. They are constant laser shots. And it is not until like the very next cut when you see that now all of a sudden they're pulsing laser shots that are just bouncing off Ultra Magnus and the pile of junk behind him. So I'm convinced at some point, like very close in production, like somebody threw a flag and was like, we're not going to do that whole drawn and quarter thing. And they're like, well, we're going to have to reanimate this thing. And they're going to be like, leave it. It'll be fine.
No, I think you're right. I think it was a late change.
But either way, that would have been horrifying. I think that probably the least horrifying thing is what we saw on screen, and is, given everything else we've seen as children, that's probably for the best. So at this point in the show, generally we get a visitor that kind of like knocks upon our... But
we can. I am the ghost of the iconic moment.
I tell you what, once you're on the other side of the curtain, there is no going back, because I'm just like, that's it.
That's it.
So
he's like, so I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious what the iconic...
Time for watching some Netflix and DiGiorno pizza.
What?
I don't even know where he's going with this one. So I guess it's pretty obvious what the most iconic part of this
there's not really.
minute
Do we even
is.
have to ask?
Does it take anything away from it that he comes right fucking back to life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's completely impertinent. Like, there's no fucking reason. He could have just been immobilized. He didn't have to be dead.
Or just beat the shit out of him and then taken the Matrix and flown off.
Because then it brings up the point of like, should we go get Prime's fucking body?
Right, yeah. It creates more questions than it does answers, for sure.
Well, and one thing on this, I guess I'll ask this while we're here at this particular spot of the show. Did this... Ultra Magnus's death, did it have any like resonance, or were you at all affected watching it? Because we've seen so many of the heroes die and get cut down and all this. I remember even being like 7 years old watching this in the theater. I'm like, he ain't dead. I mean, he does. I mean, maybe because it was something, again, with the way the animation went, but I remember distinctly that, like, noticing that basically he just kind of breaks apart. It's like his head, his arms, his legs. I mean, it's all intact. It's just kind of,
perfectly segmented.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like he's remember those toys, the crash test dummies?
Yes.
But I guess, at least in Ryan and my experience of not seeing it in the movie and having seen season 3 and seen Ultra Magnus as a character, I guess to us it could not have had the impact based on we already knew that he was going to somehow get out of it. But God, to have it paused at 57:52 here,
where his head's inverted, flying away.
Yeah, it is. We see, I think, an arm and a leg and just a giant explosion. It's just like. I feel like he's got a worse death than Optimus Prime, really, in this, or at least a less recoverable death than Optimus Prime in that sense. Like it looks like he should be all kinds of messed up.
Yeah, there's no if he's coming back from this.
No, you don't understand. Junkeon Grease.
Junkeon Grease.
Hey. Let's not get into that. Yeah, that's for another minute.
Spoilers.
So I think we're all on the same page as far as iconic moments go.
You know what though?
Ryan?
Actually,
go
hang
ahead.
on. I'm going to be Captain Contrarian here because of what we just set up. That's actually not my iconic moment. I think for me, the shot of Galvatron brandishing the Matrix and calling out Unicron, that's what sticks out to me in this scene, even more so than because it's Nimoy's line delivery. It's really well animated, and it's just cool looking. So it sticks with me, I think, a little more than this. This is obviously significant for this kind of portion of the movie, but I think Galvatron kind of turning the tables, or at least starting to think that he can, I think is even more pivotal and more iconic for the overall plot and the progression of, obviously the entire third act of the movie is based on this moment. This is our last stop before Unicron, goes on the path
turns
that
on
he does.
Him, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's because of
that is. Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
That was it. I was done.
Well, no. So I that is a great point. We do have two kind of interesting, iconic moments here, and I think this isn't the first time that we've seen Galvatron's treacherous nature. I'm trying to remember if it was like at what point he had said what the context was when he said he was going to turn on Unicron essentially the first chance he gets. I'm trying to remember which scene was that. Was that after killing Starscream? Was that after? Gosh. See, I can't quite unless I'm making it up. Unless I'm just remembering incorrectly.
I don't think it happened. I mean, I believe it comes up in some of the script deviations, but I don't think it happens in the movie proper because anytime
I think you're right.
Because anytime he shows any kind of like free will or forward thinking, he gets the red the torture. And so anytime
leads me to believe, why didn't Unicron just torture him right now for that matter? But that's
maybe because the Matrix is protecting him, I guess. I don't.
Maybe so. Maybe just even possession of it.
Maybe.
Anyway. That's a great one. Thank you for pointing that out.
Next time on the Autopod Decepticast.
So next time we're going to see Quintessa again. We're going to head back there for the trial of Hot Rod and Cup. In addition, we're going to chop up some Sharkticons with the help of the old Kick-Axe.
Yes. Nice.
And that's it, guys.
All right.
So first of all, before we get into the social media shout out, thank you to Mike for having us on your program, which is a lot of fun. And thanks for coming on to ours, man. It was great to have you here, man.
Mike was, by the way, Mike, we were on Mike's episode on April 10th, correct?
Yeah. A few weeks ago. And that was awesome. You could go back in the feeds and check that out if you haven't yet, because that was, it's actually going to work out really well if you, maybe take both podcasts and listen to them in sequence together. There may be some continuity threads there. Who could say though? I mean, it's been a few weeks since we've talked. It's fucking radio magic.
Keep that curtain closed. If people decided that they thought you were a good contributor to this episode and would like to hear more of you, where would they hear more of you?
Well, they can find me a few different places. You can find me at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and on the Facebook. I have a weird spelling on the Twitter, but basically, if you start typing in Mike Seibert, I'm the one that's not the Mars rover guy. Just kind of like how Jet has the thing where he's not the mama fighter.
That's right.
You type in Mike Seibert, the first match is like the dude that worked on the Mars rover. I assure you that is not me. But no, I do a lot on Twitter. I do some Instagram, and I'm relatively new on the face space. I just I've started to kind of try to reach more people with the podcast. So I have a personal page there as well as a show page. Again, that is at Mike Seibert Radio, and the spelling is Seibert. So it's either spelled backwards or pronounced backwards depending upon where you're from. Quick tangent. I have a buddy of mine. He's the host of the Mr. BS Show podcast out of Colorado, and he spells it exactly the same way I do, Seibert, except he pronounces his name Seibert. And most people, I can always tell who's listened to the show when they get the pronunciation right, like you guys. But yeah,
they're in our cap.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like they'll give me shout outs and they'll be like Mike Seibert. I mean, it's a weird thing. I've dealt with it all my life. I don't really care one way or the other. But anyway, sorry. At Mike Seibert Radio, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can also send me an email, mikeseibertradio@gmail.com. You can listen to the podcast on SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio app, and on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to leave me a review, let me know. I will give you a shout out on the air if I figure out how to make it work. I actually kind of like uninstalled Apple Podcasts for a few because it was just mooching too much of my computer's memory. That's for example why I haven't left you guys a review, because I can't get them to stick. It's like
I haven't left us a review either.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, have you guys ever had that problem where like you type up a review and like you do it like maybe a couple times and it doesn't stick? It's kind of it's weird. Anyway,
well, you tell us, because I left you one the other day. So if it doesn't stick, let me know.
It's all good.
Oh, that's funny. I'll have to look into that.
Check it out.
I'll give you a shout out on the air. But yeah, no,
that's all I want.
Yeah, no. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Mike Seibert Radio, and that's about where you can find me on the social medias and on the internets. I think there's a handful of other podcasting apps that I'm sure I'm on that I don't know about, but but yeah, my primary feed is on SoundCloud.
We are the ones we choose to be on for ourselves. The Autopod Decepticast are iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. And then we've got, of course, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all of them are at APodDcast. And Ryan, I'm sure there's going to be plenty to put on the AutopodDecepticast.com website this week.
No.
All right. Okay.
I love web presence.
Yeah, I'll figure. I forget all about it until I go through and edit and remember. Oh yeah, I make notes about what to put up there. So tune into that.
And we love raters and subscribers as well. Mike's gonna rate us. He's gonna rate us on iTunes, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, totally. That's well, especially since you took
3 stars.
Yeah, 3 stars. Yeah, these guys are assholes.
They're average at best.
Yeah, I mean, they came on my show and started talking about finger banging and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what the hell are they doing here?
Perfect.
Touche.
All right, well, thanks everybody for listening. Everybody take care. Have a great week.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Make good choices.
Good choices.
Yeah.
Blow cells, where we sell good.